has a brand name pharmaceutical product finds ways to extend the patent. And the extension will almost always, I would say, involve some improvement in the product, although sometimes that improvement might be relatively small. And in the first case that I'm aware of that was litigated, actually Dennis Carlton and I happened to be opposite each other, although we didn't directly conflict. And that was a case where there were a number of hops, as we say. The hops are like the following. The hops would be you switch from a capsule to a tablet. Then you decide that the tablet's best served mixed with applesauce. Then you decide you need a different dosage of the patent. Then you split the patent in two. Then you change the dosage and split the patent in three. That's a relatively broad characterization of what happened in this particular case. Now, each of these extensions either involve a new patent or a new process, which involves a delay in generic entry. But each of these steps typically involves a real positive benefit. So the tension here is that there aren't pro-competitive benefits to these product hops, but there can be substantial harm to consumers. And the question we face is, where should we allow the patent scope to end, or should we have some process that reasonably allows the court to decide what to do about these cases? Should they balance the pro-competitive benefits against the harms? Should they have a different set of presumptions and so on? And that issue is still unresolved by the courts. We have one case that's been decided, but a number of others that are likely to go in different directions, and I think ultimately the Supreme Court will decide what to do about this. My own view is that we have to find some way to balance, whether it's a literal balance or just a set of presumptions. We have to find some way to achieve a way to limit the ability of the patent holders to expand the scope of the patent. One example would be what we call a no economic sense test. If you could prove that the plaintiff would not have the defendant would not have engaged in this extension of the patent, except for the anti-competitive effects it generated, there's no other economic sense for the test, then maybe that's at least a reasonable condition for showing that the patent scope should be limited. Now, the product hops have been around for a while, and I think we're going to see a number of them until the litigation gets resolved and the courts come up with a clear opinion. But there's a further step that I have seen, and I will describe it just generally, but I can tell you that my examples are based on real practices. So the first thing is you can consider bundling. You consider bundling the particular brand product that you have with other products that may be related. Maybe there are a set of particular ways of serving up the particular drug that's useful, and maybe you say you can offer them in the bundle. Maybe there are 3 drugs that are related, and particular individuals need all 3 drugs. You bundle them together, and now we have a bundling practice where a bundling of this sort may be deemed to be anti-competitive depending on the conditions of the bundle. And I've seen some bundles that struck me as having relatively little pro-competitive benefits, other than perhaps the lower cost of the bundle, and really made it very hard for others to compete because others didn't have all the drugs in the bundle. Take a step further, which is you tie 2 products together. You've got a blockbuster drug that's really successful, another drug that has some relationship to that, maybe complements it, but you tie the 2 together. You say you can't, if you're going to buy the blockbuster, you also have to buy this other drug with it. These practices, as we know, are difficult to evaluate. They often generate real benefits, but they also generate harm, and typically they can be designed to delay generic entry. So my view is that pharma is the area where we're most likely to see the sharp tension between the pros and cons of trading off antitrust with IP protection. And my own view is that even though it's very difficult for the competition authorities or the courts to deal with these issues, they have no choice. We have to really think hard about to deal with it. Doing nothing will, in fact, just encourage these practices to be generated to be more and more anti-competitive. So I look forward to the U.S. and other courts, Europe and otherwise, to try to deal with these difficult issues.